Hi class, so today we're going to be talking about ecological succession. Ecological succession, the word ecological or ecology is the study of living things in their environment. As for the word succession, that means like a sequence or a chain or a cycle. Make sure you have your notes 54 out. I'm going to go over the notes with you. I'm going to underline all the answers for you, so please write down the answer as I go along. Alright, so let's review some vocabulary words that we've already talked about. Number 1, all of the members of a species found in an area is known as population. So that's a single species. For example, like the rabbit population, the buffalo population, that's only one type of species, or the human population. Number 2, groups of different living things interacting in an area is called community. So that's all of the living things in an area. So for example, hawk, butterfly, grass, the pronghorn, the jackrabbit, deer, flycatcher, all of these living things in an area are called community. As for number 3, all of the living things and the abiotic factors in an area make up the ecosystem. So on number 3, ecosystem. Remember the word biotic, let me write that down for you. The word biotic means living. For example, I will circle all of the biotic things in blue. That's the hawk, flycatcher, pronghorn, jackrabbit, coyote, butterfly, mule deer, as well as the grass. As for the abiotic stuff, abiotic, that means non-living, I will circle in pink. That's water vapor, air, light, and minerals. Believe it or not, forests start out as a pile of barren rock, which means without any life. On number 4, what does it mean for rocks to be barren? You're going to write without any life. Number 4. So a forest, it has lots of trees, but before all those trees appeared, it was just barren rock. And then over time, these ecosystems change as new communities replace older ones. This gradual change in the community of organisms is known as ecological succession. On number 5, what do we call the process of new communities replacing older ones over time? Ecological succession. So this little diagram below here represents ecological succession. Changes that happen over time. So in the very beginning, it starts off as just barren rock, but over time, notice the number of plants and types of plants begin to grow and begin to appear. But as you see, as you move through ecological succession, the plants get bigger and bigger and bigger. So keep that in mind. So our Earth is over 70% ocean and the rest is land. New land is created or formed through volcanic eruptions and receding glaciers. That is going to be number 6 on your notes. That is how new land is created, by volcanic eruptions. So volcanoes erupting and lava spilling out, or receding glaciers. So whenever the ice breaks apart, it creates new land. New rocky terrains are not well suited for life, and only a few organisms are able to survive on these harsh conditions. So as you see in this picture, not many organisms can survive on these rocky terrains, okay? The first organisms to move into these harsh growing conditions are known as pioneer populations. Number 7. What is the first population on new land called? Pioneer populations. Those were the first organisms to live on these rocks. Lichens are one of the pioneer populations in many new ecosystems. These hardy organisms can grow directly on the rocks. So if you look at the picture here, these little orange looking things, those are the lichens that grow on the rock. Over here, instead of orange, it's green. These are lichens that grow on the rocks as well. Since very few organisms can fill these niche, lichens thrive on a rocky landscape. So on number 8, what is a common pioneer population that grows on rocks? That is the lichens. So the cool thing about lichens, they are not a single organism, but a pair of organisms. Remember, a pair means two. So they are a pair of organisms living in a mutualistic relationship, meaning both are happy. Lichens are made up of a fungi and an algae. The algae performs photosynthesis and provides food for both, while the fungi absorbs water and minerals and provides shelter for the algae. Notice that they both benefit one another. So on number 9, lichens are a relationship between what two organisms? And the answer is fungi and algae. That is number 9. On number 10, what can algae do that helps the lichen survive? The answer is performs photosynthesis. Number 10 is perform photosynthesis. That's what algae does. Number 11, why are lichens an example of mutualism? Because they help each other. It is not written on there, and I'll write it at the top. Number 11, help each other. Biological, physical, and chemical erosion breaks apart rocks into small pieces. So remember, in a forest, it starts off as rock. Now, how are rocks broken down? Number 12, the answer is biological, physical, and chemical erosion is number 12. Decomposition of dead pioneer species adds nutrients to the ground. These processes create what we call soil. So as organisms die, so whenever those pioneer species die, they add nutrients to the ground. So, and then that will create that soil that we see. So on number 13, what process adds organic nutrients to the soil? And the answer is decomposition. Number 13. Decomposition. So here, in the beginning, it starts off as barren rock, and then the next level or the next succession is lichens, pioneer populations. Now, once soil is there, now plants can begin to grow. So the formation of fertile soil allows plants called annuals to replace the pioneer community. So on number 14, what type of plant can begin to grow in the new fertile soil? The answer is annuals. That is number 14. Annuals only live for 1 year, and each year a new population germinates, flowers, and dies. So on number 15, how long do annuals live for? They live for only 1 year. That's number 15. 1 year. Since annuals die each year, they keep adding nutrients to the soil. This will allow perennial plants like grass and ferns that live for more than 2 years to replace the annuals. So notice this pattern. As organisms die, they will add nutrients to the soil. So on number 16, how do annuals improve the soil? Adding nutrients. That is number 16. Number 17, what plants replace annuals after annuals improve the soil? And the answer is perennials. Number 17 is perennials. And perennials, they live for 2 years. So number 18, 2 years. Now, once the perennial dies, they're going to add more nutrients into the soil. And so eventually, the soil can sustain larger vascular plants like shrubs and bushes that live for longer periods of time. Number 19, what community eventually replaces perennials? Shrubs and bushes is number 19. Shrubs and bushes. So we start off as rocks, then those pioneer populations come in, annuals, perennials, and now shrubs and bushes. Now, once those shrubs and bushes die, they add more nutrients into the soil. So finally, once the soil has become deep and fertile, trees begin to grow. This usually begins with softwood trees. So on number 21, number 20, what replaces shrubs once soil becomes deep enough? Trees. Number 21, what type of tree usually grows first? And that is softwood trees. Number 21, softwood trees. These trees are conifers, which have cone-like pine and fir trees. So on number 22, what do conifers use to reproduce? They use cones. That's number 22. Remember, cones and flowers are what allows plants to reproduce. Here's what a cone looks like if you've never seen one before, right here. So whenever the softwood trees die, they add even more nutrients to the soil. And then eventually, hardwood trees like oak and maple trees begin to replace the conifers. So number 23, what type of tree may eventually replace conifers? And the answer is hardwood trees. That's number 23, hardwood trees.
This is regarding shade. We're seeing a lot of young men with not slight facial hair, but full-on beards, goatee.
So on the front page, go ahead and label that diagram. Starting off, notice that there are dashed lines to separate each level. So write down for the first section is barren rock. And then it's lichens, annuals, grass, shrubs, softwood trees, hardwood trees. So go ahead and label it. You may pause the video. Now, one community keeps replacing another until it is a stable climax community. Okay? On number 24. The communities will keep changing until the ecosystem becomes what? And the answer, stable. Number 24. Number 25, what do we call the final stable community? And that is climax community. Climax community. The stable, mature forest will sustain itself as long as the climate stays the same. The process of barren land being colonized by plants for the first time is known as primary succession. Number 26. Primary succession. Remember, primary is the first time through, like primary consumers. That's number 1. Primary succession. Number 27. What organisms are the foundations of the food web? Y'all know the answer. The answer is plants, is number 27. You could also write the answer as producers. Doesn't matter to me. So notice at the very bottom of this food pyramid are producers. And don't forget that producers has the most energy and the most biomass. So energy, a lot of it, and a lot of biomass. So as the plant community grows, new niches are created for animals. On number 28, what are created for animals as plant communities develop? The answer is niches. Homes, habitats, food, resources. Animal populations will fill these niches and even compete over them as the biodiversity of the ecosystem increases. Now, on number 29, what is biodiversity? Remember, bio means life, okay? As for the word diversity, it means different, variety, okay? I also have written it on your notes, so you're going to write different living things. Different living things. So number 29, different living things. It is important to understand that not every ecosystem will be able to become a forest. For example, like a desert. A desert is not a forest. Can y'all think of why? As you know, deserts are very, very hot and they don't get much rainfall, so they cannot form a forest. This is because climate plays a huge role in determining the climax community. Some ecosystems just do not get enough rain to support a large forest of trees, just like desert, grassland. Notice grassland has grasses and bushes but no trees because it only gets a little bit of water. As for tundra, it's super cold. So on number 30, what factor plays a role in determining the climax community? That is climate. What might an ecosystem never become? Why might an ecosystem never become a forest? Not enough rain. That's number 31. Not enough rain. Sometimes a mature climax community can exist until the climate changes, but forests are not immune to destruction. Fires, deforestation, and natural disasters can destroy a forest and force it to go back through the stages of ecological succession. So number 32, what are some examples of things that might destroy a climax community? Fires, deforestation, and natural disasters. Number 32. So whenever a forest is destroyed, the process of an ecosystem returning to its stable form after a disaster is known as secondary succession. So it has to go through it a second time. So on number 33, what do we call the process of an ecosystem returning to a stable community after a disaster? That is secondary succession. Now, when ecological succession happens a second time, secondary succession, this happens faster than primary succession because soil is already there And nutrients are more available at the beginning of the process. So that's very important. It happens faster. Now go ahead and answer the questions at the very bottom using your notes. If you have any questions, raise your hand and I will help you out.